back to Dragon Dreams. I'm Ivan, and on my channel, we discuss indie, unorthodox, and OSR role-playing games. Today, I'm going to talk about 7 rules that you can use at your table to make combat faster and to keep immersion flowing. So imagine this scenario. You're walking down a dank, dark corridor. You come to an oaken door covered in cobwebs. There's an old copper handle covered in verdigris. You turn it. The hinges creak and hiss. And behind the door are 6 orcs growling war cries at you. Okay, roll for initiative. Am I the only one who thought that the GM asking people to roll for initiative kind of killed the mood? There's a sense to which initiative rolls are the barrier between immersion pre-combat and going into this bookkeeping phase of rolls and damage and hit point counting. It feels a little bit too much like what we do at work. I'd like to cut the fat out of this and get things moving. So first step is stop using initiative. Did you realize you don't actually need to use it? In this particular example, I give the orcs the initiative. The PCs didn't think to put oil on the hinges or have the thief listening at the door to determine whether or not they could hear any noises inside. The hinges creaking alerted the orcs, and they got in position and got ready for the PCs. The orcs may not be as smart as your average human, but they're well-trained. Think Lord of the Rings, right? They're well-trained for rank-and-file combat. They're ready. If you really don't have a good way of determining who goes first, just have whoever has the highest dex go first. In other words, give a dexterity to the monsters, maybe 10 or 11. If you have higher than that, you go before the monsters. If you go lower than that, you go after the monsters. If it's a tie, give it to the monsters. It makes things scarier. All right. Tip 2 is instant retaliation. This is a rule that I put in my table, and my players loved it, and so did I. The problem with a lot of OSR combat, or old school Dungeons and Dragons combat, is that when you're first level, honestly, even to hit a normal person without any armor or shield or any dexterity, you only have about a 50-50 chance. Get somebody with chainmail, now you have a 25% chance. I've had combats where everybody missed in the whole entire round. And to me, that's a waste of a round. I want people to hit already, do some damage. So the instant retaliation rule goes like this. Anytime somebody misses, the person they missed gets a free attack on them. Obviously, if you can't attack, like for example, they're shooting arrows at you from 100 feet away or something, and you have only throwing daggers and a sword, like you can't really get them. And this only goes one level deep, so you can't make a counterattack against a counterattack. What this rule does is it minimizes the number of misses, or to put it another way, it takes a miss as an opportunity for more hit-taking to take place. And it also does something else, which is, combined with tip 1, it is gamified, meaning that one of the flaws in not having initiative is that you can make murder hobos out of your players. They come along and they see goblins who are innocently minding their own business, or they're walking through a swamp and they're these lizard folk, and they're just there, and lizard folk are actually neutral, like they maybe not even attack you, and they're just like, attack them! We want initiative! What this does is it means that if you miss, they get a free attack on you. And yes, they get to attack again for their own normal attack, so that get 2 attacks potentially. That means you better have some confidence in your to-hit skills before you rush monsters. Tip 3. Roll to hit and damage together. Like literally put your d20 in your hand, put your damage die in your hand, roll it, And then if you hit, use the damage die. If you don't hit, don't use the damage die. This emits an extra wrist flick for every turn in a combat round. And wrist flicks are a good thing to eliminate. We want to cut the fat off of the combat and make it really streamlined so that immersion continues. Tip 4. Roll before you consult. A lot of times when you're rolling a d20 and you have some target, like you have to roll a 13 or higher or something, there's really only about a third, maybe even a quarter of the rolls you could roll that are actually going to determine, yes, you succeeded or no, you failed. That are actually ones you have to look up a target for. The rest of the time, like probably 2/3 of the rolls, you just know, like, okay, your first level character, you want to make a saving throw. You know your saving throw is going to be somewhere between 11 and 16. I think that's 7 notches on the d20. Now you might have a bonus from wisdom or something like that. Okay, fine. But still, there's a range. If you rolled a 7, you obviously failed. If you rolled an 18, you obviously succeeded. So if you roll first and then determine whether you know or you don't know whether or not you succeeded or failed, only then would you actually need to check things. It goes much faster. And tip 5. Make sure your players report the modified roll to you if you're the GM, not the unmodified roll. As a GM, you have too much work to do. You can't be responsible for figuring out that person's strength and dex, figuring out, what magic sword they have, or if they have a magic sword or whatever. Make them do that. They know their characters better than you do. And it incentivizes them to know what's on their character sheet. And then if they take too long going through their character sheet and going, oh, let's see, gee, I have a strength at 13 and I have a, +1 sword, etc., etc. It all adds up to +4. So, don't let them do that more than 3 times. If they do, say, look, you really need to know what's on your character sheet. When I ask for it to hit roll, you need to be right there and suggest that they write somewhere on their character sheet, like I get this bonus for melee to hit and this bonus for missile to hit. And that way, for probably 95% of cases, they'll just know what that bonus is. Okay. And tip 6. Roll morale. One of the things I love about old OSR games and the old school TSR Dungeons and Dragons games is they have this morale system. I think in the old days it was a 1 to 12 scale. Now it's probably like a 1 to 20 scale, but it doesn't matter. The point is you have some mechanism for determining morale at the end of each round. Now, of course, you don't need to do it every round. If nothing happened, there's no reason, the orcs aren't going to be scared off if a bunch of PCs rush them and every single PC misses. But if some of their fellows are falling dead, that may be a reason for them to run away. So it makes things more interesting. And if initiative is what kills immersion and puts you into that bookkeeping category, morale is what continues the momentum of immersion after the combat is over and goes into post-combat immersion. I mean, imagine this scenario. They chase that orc down as running away because they don't want the orc warning the chief, there's adventurers in the dungeon. As you're doing that, the orc jumps over a pressure plate that they know springs a trap, but you step on it. Bam! You hit a trap. This is so much more interesting. It makes the dungeon be this scary place where you run around at your own risk. It makes things happen. It means that activities are going on all the time, whether you're in combat or out of combat. And really what we want for immersion is to keep things flowing from pre-combat to combat to post-combat. And that brings me to my final and 7th tip 7. When you have cannon fodder level monsters, goblins or kobolds, if the players are higher level, PCs are higher level, then, maybe orcs or even hobgoblins, even gnolls at some point are going to become sort of cannon fodder monsters. like, keep the hit points vague. Let's say, they hit a goblin or a kobold for 3 points of damage, and you're not sure whether do they have 2 points left, 3 points left, or 4 points left. Just say you kill them. It doesn't really matter that much. Your players aren't going to know, and they probably won't care. It just makes things go a lot faster if, the heroes just make quick work of the little underling runt characters. And, save the bookkeeping of hit points for a dragon. Dragons, you want to know that you got every single hit point down from that dragon and exactly that hit point, the number of hit points, right? I'd also say for first level characters, it's a good rite of passage to go through the exercise of doing the bookkeeping for even those kobolds because, hey, every hit point counts at first level. But beyond that, just keep things smooth. All right, so those are my tips. Tell me in the comments what you think about these tips. Would you use them? Have you used them? What were the results? What are your tips? I have made a PDF of this. I have put it up on DriveThruRPG and on Big Greek Emporium. I always say that wrong. Big Geek Emporium. I think it's because of Big Fat Greek Wedding. Anyway, it's $1 on DriveThruRPG. I ended up having to charge a little bit more on Big Geek Emporium because they take more off of the top. And it just isn't, I don't think I even get anything for a $1 product. Point is, it's less than a cup of coffee. And what I've done is I've made this PDF really just two-sided. So here you go. And you can see that it's just two-sided. That means you can print it out on double-sided paper or put the paper through twice through your printer. And you can end up with having this little thing on your table that's just easy, to flip over. Okay. If you enjoyed this video, please like it. Please consider subscribing to my channel. Please consider supporting me on Patreon because I have the link below. And all of these things will, first of all, help my algorithm with the YouTube stuff. And it will also incentivize me to make more great content for you. Because really, I think there's, if I'm not getting anything, I'm not hearing anything that anybody likes what I'm doing, I may just, I'm less incentivized. But as long as I feel like, hey, people are really getting something out of this, then, it makes me want to do this channel. So, until next time, happy dreaming, everybody.